Hello, welcome to Stain 101. I'll go over the different stains here, mainly in Arborcoat to start with. So with Arborcoat, we have four different categories of opacity. So these two here are the translucent. So this is translucent in the classic oil. This is translucent in the Y series, the 623 Arborcoats. These all come only in factory made colors. So you've got the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, which is the natural cedar, mahogany, teak, all those colors there. The 326 is the one we generally want to use for decks over the 623. Only because 623 or any of the latex Arborcoats tend to dry too quick in our climate, especially on a deck, where they don't get a chance to penetrate and then they wear off prematurely. The oil, even when people do it in the direct sunlight, which is against what we advise, it will still take hours and hours to dry, which means it will penetrate. Another main difference between these two, this is a one coat. If people are looking for a second coat for depth of color or uneven coverage, it can be second coated, but they are within hours of each other. It needs to be completely dry before the latex goes over itself. The oil base goes unevenly shiny if it's put on one coat and then another coat is put on the next day. It is a wet on wet coat product. So meaning you put on one coat, you come back within 10 minutes and put your next coat back on over top. Then those two coats basically become one and you'll get a nice even coat that will outlast a single coat. That same principle applies when you go into our color selection. I think there's 75 colors something. We have three main categories. So the translucents are pre-tinted, but then people can get either semi-transparent or semi-solid in latex or oil. So in the latex, the semi-transparent is 638 versus the oil is 328, and in the semi-solid, you've got 639 versus 329 in the oil. And then we have solid, which only comes in latex, and you are not restricted to the colors that are here. You can do any of our colors off the color chart. The 328, 329, 326, those three oils basically all operate the same way. They can be wet on wet coated. They are what we generally recommend for decks over the latexes. Once you're into the latex, of the latexes, the pre-tinted, the translucents are the best performing. Then we have the 638 and 639. Both of those products, that's where on a deck you'll see on the can, it suggests clear coating with the 636 can, which is that green label one, kind of in the middle down there. That one there. That system is a hit and miss. I think a lot has to do with conditions, with prep, but it's a lot more finicky. The oils, because they take longer, they penetrate better, tend to be a better product all around for all of that. The big thing to kind of remember in all of it is that we have the exact same thing coming down in translucent, semi-transparent, and semi-solid. You can get all of those colors in a latex or an oil equivalent. Both have benefits and disadvantages. The oil, the cleanup, the dry time, things like that. The latex is generally, the cans always suggest coating them every year, and they really should be coated on a deck every year. On a fence, the latexes hold up well, but the top rail or anything sitting horizontal that has standing water, again, seems to be less well wearing. The solid is a good product. It's an emulsified product, so you got heavy oil carried in a latex. Takes the latex tint, dries like latex, cleans up with latex, but it has that oil component that helps penetrate. But then the latex, it helps it hold its color and longevity. Basically, maintenance routines are, if we're doing oil on a deck and somebody wet on wet coats, we tell them to do the wet on wet coat this year and then to come back in 2 years and give it a light coat. It doesn't need a sand, it just needs to be clean. When you do the latex, again, pretty much they're always a full year, or every year to do them, just they don't tend to last as long. The solid generally is going to be a 3 to 5 years between coating, but we still have found the longest lasting is Aura. We're getting 5 years plus on high wearing decks. All of this comes down to prep though. The biggest thing is if people have new wood, they have the option to use brightener, which will take the mill glaze off the wood. which is similar to what you're trying to accomplish with sanding. If they've got old wood, they can use remove, but again, this is latex stains and oil stains. It will not work well on paint. It won't really do anything to paint. So in that situation, unless they've got a light stain like an SRD or Thompson's Water Seal or an Arborcoat, this will take that off. But otherwise, if it's anything really solid, even some of the solids can be tough, then best is going to be sanding. If people have a grade deck, sanding is still my favorite, but otherwise the option is doing restore first, which is going to take grade to new looking, but it's going to leave the wood acidic, and that's why you need brightening neutralizer. One, it will brighten up the wood and it will take that acidity away. And lastly, there is waterproofer. This is similar to Thompson's Water Seal. It's emulsified silicone and wax. All that does, because it is clear, there's no UV barrier to it, so all it does is waterproof the wood, which really doesn't get rid of the majority of what's damaging the wood. It does stop the cells of the wood from absorbing moisture and letting it out, which does cause cracking, but the UV is the main thing around here that's going to break everything down. So this is not a coating we generally go to, but it's a good price point, and if people are really adamant about having it, they can have it, but it does trap moisture in the wood, so decks that are continuously treated with that will eventually rot out. Past that, we do have, when people want something really clear, we have to explain to them nothing that is 100% clear has a full UV barrier. We have a compromise on something we call Clear Natural. Let's see if I can dig out here. So it's color we've made up, and what it is it is the least amount of tint that we can put in and still get some UV protection. So that is it there. So that is 32806 tinted with 3OY 3WH. It still has some color, but significantly less than the 32610, which is somewhere here. Oh, here we go. So this one here. So that's 32610 versus this. So when somebody wants something really pale, that's the palest we go, but we still need to explain that's not 100% UV barrier. Because it's something we've done, there's no real number for it. I'm guessing it's 50-60%. It will definitely slow graying significantly, but not eliminate altogether, versus everything else in Benjamin Moore that they suggest will have a full UV barrier. As long as it's maintained, the wood will not gray, will not degrade outside of that. We do have Sickens, which is very similar to the oils, the 32806 and 329s. They're a similar product to Sickens, but I'll go over that in another video.